Hi, welcome to GODSPLAY. I'm Gavin Mills and telling you my take on religion, spirituality, esotericism, and all these funny things you cannot touch. Uh, First, before we go there, I just want to just make something clear. I'm not going as a prophet, a seer, a sage, or trying to start a new religion or convert people to my way of thinking. That would be pretty fucked, I think, probably in the first place. It's just what I believe, what I've found out, what I've seen, what works for me. I had a look at religion. I was brought up as Catholic with a little bit of NPR flavor, work it out for yourself. And yeah, so I was brought up in the Christian faith, and some of the stories started not to resonate true. And I thought, well, if faith is a situation that should be is real, it's not just a fantasy story, then it should somehow link up to God or the creative force and the universe. It had to somehow gel. It couldn't be just a picture like a once upon a time. And that's when I started digging, when I've come up with different ideas of my feeling that makes sense. I'm not in presumptions to saying, well, I think it makes sense, therefore it is. It's just what seems to work in you. It seems to have a purpose from a universal perspective as opposed to a human perspective. But today, let's talk. What I'd like to talk about is the strength of the word, of a word, and silos. What I mean, strength of a freaking dog going mile again. Stop it! See what I mean? Strength of a word. I tell the dog to stop, he stops doing his whole thing. Picture a house. You have a picture in your house, there'll be different shapes, different sizes, but basically you got the same idea of a house. A car, the same. Walking, the same. Running, the same. Anger, would we have the same? Everyone all over the world, different cultures, would we all have the same feeling and same response or visualization of what anger means in different people's heads? No, I don't know. Anxiety, jubilation, the emotions. We wouldn't have the same. We base our perception of things in our life based on our experiences and our earlier perceptions. So if our life is different to someone else, the chance of the way I visualize an emotion is different to the way they visualize it. Is it an absolute correct? No. Is it in between? No. It's much more complex than that. But if we can get confused with words so easily, and different people, think about it, wars have been caused by misunderstanding or interpretation of wars or letters. People have died all the time because of misunderstandings or misinterpretation. Now, that is in everyday life. Could you think how that must be misinterpreted by the word God? That how do we interpret it? What's right or wrong? Who knows? No one knows for certain. I take it based on the biggest question of all. At the moment before the Big Bang, which is seen as the beginning of the universe, but couldn't be because time before the scientists that didn't exist. Tick tock. In the simplest terms, what was before? But anyway, the question at that moment was there mind or matter that ignited the universe? Was it a conscious thought or just a rock exploded for no freaking reason? And that was because that will define whether there was a creator or not. What was the intent? And as I said before, my feeling is that there was always mind and matter, and they converge. They're not separate. God is not an entity on the side of the universe, matter is somewhere else. That's integrated, I think. Mind, matter, we can't understand. We think, and this is the point, we think in silos, don't we? We think, okay, well, this is God. This is the world. This is how the relationship. We keep them as separate, and this is water, and this is land, and this is air. And but we don't think about air is made of oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, all of these other elements, and they mix. It's not a situation with little packets like bubbles floating around. They actually mix, and so many things in life are like that. They're not silos. The way things work are not in silos. The same with our understanding of God. If he does this, it therefore turns around and means he's behaving like God, give him a tick. It's much more complex like that. It's organic, I think. I think the whole universe is organic, where there's interchanging between matter and energy and spirituality and mass. The whole, not mass, but matter, energy, spirit, and consciousness, where those four elements are always in the mix. but they change. Sometimes there's more energy, sometimes there's more matter, sometimes there's more conscious involvement, sometimes there is more spiritual and a reason for the involvement. But that is the power of word and the thought of silos. Think bigger. Think from your experience what it must be. Don't just hang on to those grade 4 picture books of the Bible and stuff like that. I'm not knocking it at all. Please don't. I'm not knocking anything. I'm just, my opinion, I looked at it. The first 5 books, for instance, of the Bible were not written by God, handed to Moses, because unfortunately evidence seems to suggest he didn't exist. So the whole 40-year saga in the Sinai, I don't know, maybe it did, but they can't find evidence of it. And then there are talks that some of the flood comes from Epic of Gilgamesh, which is Sumerian, and sometimes before that, and the other stories of the Deluge all over. So the stories are all amalgamation. Then we hear that there was scribe syndicate in Babylon when the Semites were in slavery in Babylon, that these guys came out there, 5 different scribes, they would have compiled the first 5 books. So who knows? But it's still the word of God. Everything is the word of God. Everything emanates from God, but not conscious. Think of the power of what the universe must be and try and rationalize what you see and what you feel from spiritually and how the afterlife works, which is another issue all on its own, isn't it? What happens when we die? Do I believe in a soul? Yes and no, but I will cover that next time. I hope you got some kind of not enlightenment, not inspiration, but just, that does speak some sense at times, doesn't it? Have a lucky day, ciao.